Hi everyone, I'm Kevin Nelson. Here's a look at what's going on this week in the news. We begin with news from Rome. In an annual tradition, Pope Francis led a meditation with diocesan and religious clergy of Rome at the Basilica of St. John Lateran. The Pope focused his meditation on a continued growth in faith in the priestly life. Rome Reports has more from St. John.
Like every year at the beginning of Lent, the Pope met with the priests who are based in Rome. The appointment was in the Cathedral of Rome, the Basilica of St. John Lateran. Unexpectedly, before he began speaking, he heard the confessions of 12 of them. He then delivered a long meditation on the importance of the priest who grows in the faith in order to help others grow in faith, since no one can give what he does not have. In particular, he asked them to regularly go to confession.
A me piace ripetere che un sacerdote è un vescovo che non si sente peccatore, che non si confessa, si chiude in sé, non progredisce nella fede.
When he concluded, he told them that he would give them the written text of a meditation to read during Lent. He also gave them the book Do Not Be Afraid to Forgive by Capuchin Luis Dri. Between jokes, he told them that there was only one copy for each.
Ora, niente furbizia,
In news from the Vatican, a Vatican workshop has concluded that increasing threats against biodiversity, unsustainable use of the Earth's resources, and accelerated extinction rates are driven more by overconsumption and unjust wealth distribution than by the number of people on the planet. The statement from the workshop said that while the world's population has tripled since 1950 with close to 7.4 billion people today, per capita income growth and world GDP has seen bigger gains with huge benefits to much of humanity. However, the statement went on to say, aside from threatening millions of species with extinction, this enormous increase in economic activity based on profit and on the use of fossil fuels is putting huge strains on the Earth's capacity to function sustainably. This final statement came at the end of the workshop entitled Biological Extinction, How to Save the Natural World on Which We Depend. The workshop was sponsored by the Pontifical Academies for Sciences and Social Sciences and held February 27th through March 1st. More news from the Vatican. One of the founding members and the last remaining abuse survivor on the Pontifical Commission for the Protection of Minors has resigned over what she described as resistance coming from Vatican offices against implementing recommendations. Rome Reports has more on this story from the Vatican.
Marie Collins is one of the victims of abuse who worked in the Vatican Commission for the Protection of Minors. Since its first meeting in 2015, she warned that if what it publicly declared did not correspond with any concrete action, she would leave.
If we don't really, particularly in bishop accountability within the next year or within 2 years at least, if we don't have something solid in place, I don't know that I would want to remain on the commission. It's as he said, you probably wouldn't find him here. Well, I don't think you'd find me here either. And that's survivor point of view.
Now that day has come. It is a very important gesture. The Irish-born citizen denounced the reluctance of some members of the Vatican Curia to implement the recommendations of the Commission approved by the Pope. She also says that they have neither the resources nor the material to do their work, and that any progress is too slow or runs up against cultural resistance. She blames above all the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, suggesting that it refuses to respond to the letters of victims of abuse, despite the fact that the Pope has asked them to do so. She also claims that they do not want to send to bishops' conferences the guidelines they should follow when a victim reports abuse. Upon her departure, Marie Collins proposed 3 things to the Pope. First, give the Commission the power to oversee the implementation of its recommendations. Second, let the Commission have an independent budget. And third, let the Commission hire professionals who do not work in the Vatican. Cardinal Sean O'Malley, president of the Commission, publicly thanked Marie for her work over the past few years. He also has worked out a deal by which she will continue to collaborate in giving formation courses for new bishops in order to teach them how to be able to recognize cases of abuse and act against abusers. In theory, there is another victim of abuse who works on the commission. However, in practice, it is not clear whether or not Peter Saunders was suspended over a very difficult discussion concerning the Commission's ultimate purpose and authority.
As I say, we're not here for lip service.
And finally in the news, with access to international aid tightening and with the crisis deepening in the Middle East and elsewhere, a conference was held recently to discuss the critical situation of the tens of thousands of Iraqi Christian refugees in Jordan. Meeting at Our Lady of Peace Center on the outskirts of the Jordanian capital, the leaders sought better cooperation and were exploring income generation projects for the refugees badly in need of funds. Daniel Chichela of the Jordanian offices of the UN Refugee Agency told the gathering that 700,000 refugees of 42 nationalities are registered with the agency in the country. The Jordanian government says it hosts 1.5 million refugees, and its budget, water, electricity, and other services are overburdened by the numbers. Caritas Jordan program manager Omar Abawi told those gathered that the majority of the refugees are women and children who experience high cost of living expenses. While Syrian refugees have now been granted the right to work legally in Jordan, Iraqi refugees and those from other countries such as Yemen, Sudan, and Somalia do not have that right. Basic health services, he said, once provided to Syrian refugees free of charge or for a nominal fee, were never accessible to Iraqi refugees. The Vatican is funding a job creations program for Iraqi refugees in Jordan, as well as providing training in trades and seasonal employment, but many more funds and resources are needed. The conference was hosted by the Vatican Embassy in Amman and Caritas Jordan. Well, that's all the information we have for you this time. I'm Kevin Nelson. Don't forget, you can keep up to date on Catholic news throughout the week with Catholic Newsbreak right here on the Catholic TV Network.